Welcome to this session about the hybrid opportunity. We will talk about opportunities, challenges, maybe problems and solutions, the way companies work, the way companies work with their customers and can make life better for themselves and of course for their customers. We have two great guests here. First, Edwin from Buren with Enreach. Can you introduce yourself briefly, Edwin, and talk a little bit about the way your work has been influenced by Corona in the last, let's say, year and a half?
What we see in the past 1.5 years is that our customers accelerate on digital transformation, and we help them on that part by giving them services like cloud calling, cloud workplace, etc., etc. That's what we do.
And your business has taken off, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It has been a great opportunity
so
far.
Yeah,
great.
Still.
And we have Lisanne Brons with Microsoft. Same question. What do you do at Microsoft and how has your work been influenced by Corona and COVID?
Yeah, it's a great question. My name is Lisanne Brons. At Microsoft, I'm responsible for our modern workplace portfolio, which includes products such as Office 365 and Microsoft Teams, as well as our cybersecurity portfolio. And we've seen major change, right? Adding on to Edwin, it's really accelerated the digital transformation of our customers, the questions they have, the challenges they run into. I think prior to Corona, we were talking to a lot of customers about using solutions such as Microsoft Teams, and now it's just become more of a standard, a norm. Companies cannot do anymore without a good video conferencing
About
solution.
a year and a half when I would have said to somebody, let's do a Teams meeting. A Teams what? And now everybody knows, it knows Zoom, knows Teams. I mean, it's
even
totally
my parents,
familiar for everybody,
even
right?
my parents know it, yeah.
And it was for you guys an incredible business opportunity.
Absolutely.
This was totally unexpected because Teams exploded.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about this, huge growth in business.
Well, yeah, it was gigantic. We didn't, we could have never expected something like this. Teams launched a few months or 1.5 years, I think, before Corona. And we were already pretty proud of how we were doing with Microsoft Teams. But then, it really lifted off, and now everyone is using it. But it also came with challenges, right? That puts a load on your technology. We even had a phase where, can our solution handle this amount of users? So it also, in the first phase, put pressure on us. People have expectations. People also look at competitor products. How is our product relating to others? So fascinating time, but very happy where we are today.
And Edwin, like Teams, I mean, you know the product, and it did improve significantly since this, beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020.
Yeah, and we also have our own product, of course. We are a European supplier of cloud communication.
Oh, sure.
And within that product, we have also our own meetings product. So our customers use both, we see. And that works very well. But we also do integration with our products and Microsoft Teams. We also deliver calling services on Teams. So that's a whole new market that has started the last 2 years, and that's booming. So we also have profit from that and more integration of that proposition and our proposition regarding to Dynamics, Salesforce's integration to CRM applications. So that's another boost for our business also. Yeah.
So where are we? I mean, in this transition, is it like we're using basically all technology in a slightly different, more modern way, or are we really pretty far in this transition? What would you say?
I think we are just at the beginning, because 1.5, 2 years ago they drove to an appointment, and now they use other techniques like video calling. But in a way, our customers use the techniques is not the way we want. The real adoption still has to start, I think. And that's a cultural thing. They have to work different as they did. But it's also, I think, we need more adoption also by people who can do the adoption, the engineers, etc. So there's at the same time a lack of resources to help these customers. I think maybe that's the biggest problem, to get a real adoption of the new techniques.
Yeah. Because I remember, I don't remember myself, but about a little over 100 years ago, the automobile was invented, a car. The first cars looked, first you had a horse carriage, right? And then you had the first cars, and the first cars very much looked like a horse carriage without the horse. So are we now, technology-wise, in the phase where it still looks like, a car looks like a horse carriage without the horse? Is that where we are?
Yeah, if you look at SharePoint, for instance, so everybody knows SharePoint, I think our customers still use it like a sort of file server, so the way they use it before. If we really want to use that kind of services, you have to collaborate and to share the information, the documents, also with third parties. But if you share with third parties, the next question is security. So that's another big challenge, I think, it's security. And there are a lot of hackers in the world. They are busy all day. Also our customers are facing that. So I think three big challenges is security, adoption, real adoption of the new techniques, but also the people who can do it. And in Holland they are not on every corner of the street.
Yeah. And I can relate to that, right? We talked about this before, but I think in the beginning of the pandemic, we really saw, for example, our tools being used in the sense that, we had a certain way of working prior to Corona. And now we're trying to flip the switch and move to the online world. Most people were working remotely. So a meeting became an online meeting, a brainstorm, an online brainstorm, and even the Friday night drinks became the online Friday drinks. But is that the best way of using the technology, and is it still fitting for what you want to achieve? Well, that phase has passed, but if you look at it now, I think what I see with organizations, but also internally at Microsoft, is that I sometimes wonder, everything seems to have become, be happening in a meeting. Collaboration is like sometimes a little bit too easy. Said, oh, okay, let's plan a meeting. The result of that, and way more than when I was still going to the office sometimes, is that my days are back-to-back meetings. I think everyone has learned a bit. We're taking more breaks, and I do 25-minute meetings instead of 30, so I have room to go to the bathroom or get a coffee. Everyone is learning, but still, I would say it's very meeting heavy at the moment. So for me, a next phase in really adapting to the situation is, how can you look at other ways of collaborating? You don't always need to be together in an online meeting.
Do you agree?
I think the same. I have about 6 meetings a day, 30 minutes, 1 hour. And I miss the contact sometimes with colleagues, but also with customers, talking about the business and what they want, what they see, what they need. And I hope this will come back very soon. And what you say is right. If you go from meeting to meeting, it's more than that. Real collaboration is not in a meeting. It's what you do around that. And I think that's what we miss. And that's also the next phase, I think, in the cloud productivity. Productivity, how you work so efficient as possible. You need more tooling for that, and that's not, it's more than a meeting only, what you said.
Yeah, and you mentioned SharePoint, for example. Yeah. We see it more as how can we help people adapt to more like a collaboration life cycle, in which a meeting can be one point in time, but it's not the only time where you collaborate. It can also be co-creation on a document. It can be feeling part of a community and sharing your learnings there. But sharing your learnings can also be what we call asynchronous. So if I post it somewhere, you can read it at your own time. That's good for you. But I still think that's very related to your point about adoption. We can introduce all the technology we like, but really changing the behaviors and your work patterns, that's not that easy. People, myself as well, I tend to still work from 9 to 5, where I'm also thinking I've gained much more flexibility. Am I really using that flexibility?
I see my children do it differently.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, they want to have their time off. They said, I want my weekends off, etc., etc. But they work on different times, different time zones also.
Yeah.
But they have a different mindset. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I have two small kids, 14 and 16 years old. They have their own way of working and studying, and at the time they think, well, it's the time. So then I look at a video, then I do that, I call friends, etc., etc. So not in the regular time we are used to. So I think this generation will bring a lot of new way of working also.
Yeah, I also like the term. I think it used to be called work-life balance, as if it's a skill. It's one or the other. And if I look at younger generations, I think we refer to it now as work-life dynamics. It's much more a blend of everything going. And I think that's something that it will become more fluid and more intertwined going forward.
Let's talk a little bit about customer satisfaction and the way you handle customer issues. There's a famous quote by Steve Jobs once. He said, I never do customer surveys. The customers have no clue what they want. Nobody came up with, I want an iPhone or an iPod, or like Henry Ford said, nobody came up with the idea to have a car. How do you deal with the technical possibilities we have and where your customer actually is and what he or she would order or buy, instead of listening to you guys and see what's actually possible?
Yeah, that's a good question, because when I talk with my salespeople, I said, let's use a model. And if we have a model, we can place a customer on angles where he is at the moment. So we look at access, we look at productivity, we look at flexibility, continuity, and scalability, and of course at security. So I'm thinking of using that model also by surveys and helping the customer, well, you're on the right spot or you're on the left spot, down, up, and so we can help you. Because if I talk to customers now, I see that they don't understand it anymore. It's becoming too complex.
It's too much.
It's too much. Okay. We have voice, we have mobile, we have internet, we have Wi-Fi, security, some kind of product of Microsoft. What do I have to do? I have a lot of customers, I have a lot of data. What do I do with that data? Can you help me? These kind of questions we get now. They say, I have a server on site or in a data center. I want to go to the cloud, but what is the cloud?
It's like somebody buying a computer with 2 terabytes instead of, I only need 500 gig.
Yeah. So you have to help them. If I look at the earlier days, my father was an entrepreneur. The bank director was his trusted advisor. Yeah. If we look 20 years later, the accountant was the trusted advisor. And I think the IT supplier now is the new trusted advisor of the customer, because the world is getting too complex, and also from security point of view, scary also. So we help them. 10 years ago, customers, 50, 70 employees, they had their own IT manager, application manager, etc. At the moment, they all outsource it. They only focus on their own business. That's the way they earn their money. And the techniques and the infrastructure, it's outside.
Like a hire a cleaning lady.
So more responsibility for us as a supplier. Yeah. I think we have a big responsibility.
Do you agree, Lisanne?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way you guys work as well.
Yeah, and I like the idea of being the trusted advisor or the guide within the complexity. I also like the approach with a maturity model or some kind of way to help people realize where they're at, what their options are. I mean, a lot of it might be a little bit it can feel for certain organizations like what you're presenting to me, that sounds nice, but it's so far away from where I am today. But I think all organizations can make steps towards that, and I think the role of companies such as the ones that we work for is how do you create clarity on those steps?
But do you agree with
forward?
Edwin where he says, I say it in my own words, Edwin, a lot of customers are maybe confused or overwhelmed. That's what you mean, right? Confused and overwhelmed. Do you see the same thing?
I think overwhelmed, yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot happening, and you can only invest your money and your resources once. Which are the things you're going to tackle that will have the most impact?
And then trust is crucial because
Yes.
I'm asking you what should I buy, and you're the person who sells it to me,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so
Yeah.
that's a tricky position to be in a way because I mean it's your interest to make sales, and it's in my interest as a customer to buy what I need, but not more,
Yeah.
not unnecessary, stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's why the steps approach. I like it because not all it's also not in our interest, and I think that's a shift that I see happening with many companies. On the one hand, yes, we want to sell our products, but on the other hand, I don't want to sell something that's not going to be used. I want our customers to feel the value of our products, so I only want to sell things that are interested for them at this moment in time. And you see a lot of change. I mean, internally at Microsoft, also our whole way that we are being challenged and our roles, the way that our product teams work has changed from being measured on revenue to being measured on usage. Not for all roles, but there's a big shift happening.
You still have to make money, of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's
but,
all. In all fairness, yes. But in the end, we are also not going to benefit from having customers that have our products on the shelf, right? Yeah.
There's been, Edwin, a huge shift, a huge change in the way employees work in their companies. They work from home, they work from anywhere. Talk a little bit about the way we've seen changes now between you as a supplier and your customers, because I mean that the way of working has changed dramatically as well, because you rarely meet anymore, for example. I mean, how did that change your whole commercial, route from your company to the customer?
Yeah, we have a lot of salespeople working, also by phone, but also driving in not a Ford, but in a newer car, and they miss that contact with the customer.
I can imagine, yeah.
But they also do it hybrid now, because the first meeting, if you see a customer for the first time, it's very good to sit there, because if you sit at the company, you see what happens, what kind of business it is, etc., and you get some kind of feeling with each other. The next meeting is perfect remote, so that's changing. First meetings only remote, you do not have the feeling, the real feeling with the entrepreneur, for instance. So I think that's changing for sales perspective. If we look at delivery and also our project engineers and support, it's no problem remote. We also do installations at customers, but 10 years ago we bought a server to the customer or a phone system or whatever. Now we do almost everything remote, so that's also accepted. It's only the real relation with the customer is very important, that you see them, and that's what I miss at the moment. Conferencing is nice, but to have a real room where you kind of meet each other, but then remote, with virtual reality or whatever, I think that's the next step, to make it more real, to meet each other. That's also a big chance.
You said before that hybrid working is already past us in a way.
Talking about hybrid, it's the standard, I think. So what do we do next? So like virtual reality, use these glasses or whatever to meet each other and to have some kind of real meeting, but then online. I think that's also a big opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what Microsoft is doing.
But we're doing a lot. There's a lot coming, but 100% agree. Hybrid is the default. Like, we don't even need to debate that anymore. And on the one hand, it's good. We don't jump into the car for every meeting anymore as a standard. But we also see that I think most people wouldn't prefer 100% remote for the sales roles, but for many roles this is the case. So hybrid is the way forward. But I think it's very interesting to think about what your point is. How do you make that experience? If you accept that hybrid is the default, then there will always be cases where you have part of people joining remotely and part of people joining from an office or in a physical space. And then how can you make that experience inclusive, a rich experience, a full... And we've come a long way on that. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, but hybrid meetings are not new. They've been around for decades. But the standard was, I'm happy that I can join online and kind of listen in and maybe once or twice add something to the meeting. And then that was the standard of dialing into to a conference call. I remember that you had like 9 people in the office and 1 at home, and the person kind of had to, hi, I'm also still here, you know. But now...
That's not that long ago, right?
That's not that long ago. And now people want to have an equal experience. They want to have a rich experience where they can, you know, use chat and raise hand functions and smileys and things. It becomes much more interactive in terms of presenting. There's things coming where, as a presenter, I'm in front of the screen, using AI to position me as like I'm really drawing on the whiteboard. But the next wave is, I think what you say is how do we make life-size persons in a meeting room? How do I can really look eye to eye and between virtual or remote participants and people who are in the office? Maybe even the hologram kind of things. But there's
I read an
also
interesting story the other day that the next version of the smartphone is going to be an AR device.
Yeah.
And, like Apple is already working very much on, the next iPhone is going to be an AR device. That's fascinating.
This is coming.
And imagine the business models that, become feasible once that happens, right, Edwin? I mean, we only like...
And also for our technicians. If I give them some kind of classes and I will send them to one of our customers, and they are busy and working there, and they can get help from someone else who can look at the same time. Well,
kind of through their eyes.
Easy model use.
And then the last thing on this is my advice to organizations would be, knowing that is coming, what are the investments you're making if you still have a physical office into your meeting rooms? Because in the end, the technology is already there. It's just a matter of time before it's coming to the market. But it's also depending on the devices that you have in your office space. And we do still see a shocking amount of organizations in which the meeting rooms are not in a good state to provide people with a good experience. And I think that's a big risk for hybrid work, because then the remote participant will be back in that decades ago where they felt as a second-class citizen.
Yeah. And how, we've seen in the economy after technological developments and transitions, we've seen a lot of what they call creative destruction, right? I mean, the big ones, Bob Dylan used to say, the first ones now will later be last. How do you prevent companies like yours to become, or to end up at the wrong side of this equation, where the destruction is? I mean, you have to be, we've seen it so often, big companies eventually not surviving huge technological transitions. How do you look at that?
I think for our kind of companies, we will have no big problem because we are...
You can adjust.
Yeah, rapidly, so that's one of the most important things. So flexibility is very important. I think the only big problem we're facing to get the right people. The problem is getting bigger and bigger, I think. Also, my son coming from school, does he like this kind of work? We need these type of new workers, I
You have a tough time hiring the right people?
Yeah, very tough, yeah. Also because we're in the middle of the Netherlands, so but in the north and the south and the east it's a little bit better. We are a European company, so we can also get people from abroad, but we have a lot of customers who only want to speak Dutch. So that's not an option for us. So if we are flexible, we do not have to be the first in everything, but adoption is very important, not be the latest. We can survive and we can grow and we can help customers.
I guess innovation is key, right?
Yes, yeah.
Be ahead of the pack.
Innovation and I would say indeed the ability to adjust. Our companies are by default in a sector where yesterday is not today and today will not be tomorrow. So your ability to react to that, and that really depends on culture, I think. So having people also train people to be able to adapt to change, to embrace change, to not fear change. I think that's things that you need to be mindful of. How do you develop your people so that they are not only good at their work today, but they're ready for the work tomorrow? Obviously, attracting the right talent is also a big part of that. But I would say at Microsoft we invest a lot in continuous learning. So really making learning and learning new things daily or weekly rhythm for people, and helping people I mean, everyone wants to learn, and then everyone at the end of the month said, I was busy with other things. So how do you help your people to prioritize time for that?
Yeah. Let's talk finally a little bit about management in this new era. John Wiener, one of the founders of LinkedIn, once said, managers will tell people what to do, leaders will inspire them to do it. How do you make sure you're not just a manager but a leader, Edwin?
By being...
It's crucial, you agree,
yeah?
I guess, right? Yeah.
I hope I'm a leader, but by really be a part of the company. I think that's very important to get really good relations with your colleagues, with your customers, and you're really part of the company. Well, you must have a strategy, you must explain it, so that's very important. And also to combine it with people, with learning how to do it by themselves. And the only thing I can do is to help them to do it. So that's my biggest challenge, to be some kind of leader, to have a vision, but to share it with everyone, and that also becomes their vision.
What about your leadership?
Yeah, I think
Inspire?
I like hiring people that are smarter or better at something than I am. And that prevents me from telling them how they should do it, but asking more questions. How can I help you be successful? What do you need? Etc. And I think that really works for me. So I see myself more, it's also the difference between a mentor and a coach. A mentor has done it before. There's many things my people do that I've never done before. But a coach asks, hey, how is it going? What are you running into? How can we think about that? I think coaching is the leadership skill of the future. And I hope to inspire, but I think that's also very personal for people how they
and how do you look, Lisanne, at the new generation, in their early 20s, late 20s? I mean, these are tomorrow's leaders, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully inspiring leaders. What I see in this young generation, they're curious, they are ambitious, and they have their demands when it comes to work, private balance, and everything. How do you look at this millennial generation, X generation?
Yeah, I think for me, and it's also about authenticity. So I think the newer generation doesn't want to be fit in a mold or a certain role. No, they want to have a career that's purpose-driven, that fits their own ideas about the world. It's in line with their values, etc. Much more than generations before, maybe, where your ambition might have been to reach a certain position or a certain role within a certain sector and so on. And I think the authenticity part is also about inclusion. It's also about how can you cater to everyone's needs? How do you look at people not as groups, but really look at individuals? What is your idea of work? What is important for your life? And as an organization, being able to help think about that, maybe even support with that, shape your career more on an individual level. And back to your previous question, I think that's also for leaders. I try to be authentic in what I do, and I hope to inspire through that, because everyone should come to work and not wear a mask. You can be yourself.
Well, sometimes we have to.
Well, yeah.
I know what
True.
you're saying. Yeah, of course, yeah. How do you look at the new generation, Edwin? I mean, are they inspiring you?
Yeah, also.
You have to inspire them, but what about the other way around?
Yeah, the most important thing I think they feel safe to make mistakes. And I hope we can give that to them. I see the younger people working, they have a different opinion of working. So the work-life balance is very important, and they must be challenged. So the only thing I can do for them is to give them challenges and to help them, and also coach them, but also have a safe environment that you can make mistakes. Then you learn as fast as possible, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to use your imagination. Suppose we're sitting here 5 years from now, and we're looking back at 2021, 2020, this huge pandemic. Hopefully it's over by then, But what will turn out to be the biggest lesson we've learned looking back 5 years from now? What do you think, Lisanne? I mean, what's your imagination?
I think the last period has brought us digital transformation. That's what we started this conversation with. And I think in 5 years we really reinvented how we do work as people. So the technology is in place, the hybrid is now the default, but I think in 5 years' time we'll really laugh at how we did it now, because we will have made much better use of the possibilities that we have today. That's what I wish exactly, how that will look like. With virtual reality, with I don't know, yeah. But I think the crucial change that I want to see is on the people side. How do we really challenge ourselves to really reimagine within the new possibilities?
Okay. What about you 5 years from now? What do you imagine?
I think if we look back then, it was not a technical issue. It was more a cultural and change management issue, I think, to help people work different. Because if you do the same as you do now, nothing changes. I think that's...
If you do what you did, you will get what you did. Right?
Yeah. I'll add one thing. I think very concrete. If we really embrace the technology, the new flexibility, the hybrid mode, maybe we'll be getting rid of traffic jams at certain times.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisanne. Thank you, Edwin. And thank you for joining us for this great meeting about the hybrid opportunities. There are lots of opportunities out there. Grab them. Thank you.